Welcome to a football show, Monday edition, preseason game number 1, Cam Ward debut edition, brought to you by Sinkers Beverages and Shotgun Willie's Barbecue. That is Paul Kuharsky, and I am Braden Gall. Good afternoon, PK. How are you?
Well, how you doing?
I'm doing great, man. It's fun to talk about a game that happened, even if it's just like a fourth of a game, if you want to call it that. Trevor, good to see you. If you guys want to jump into the comment section, please do so. We'd love to take your questions about what you saw, what you're most interested in. We're going to cover a lot today. We're going to try to move fast, lots of up-tempo offense. We got rookies to talk about. We got injury updates to talk about. Tajay Spears to talk about. Devondre Sweat to talk about. The offensive line to talk about. Depth, special teams, a lot of stuff. And, of course, we'll begin with Cam Ward. Obviously, really good stuff over at paulkuharsky.com. I know your story after the game, as well as Blake Bedingfield's scouting report of the game. Some stuff we're going to touch on from those articles as well today on the show. So if you want to follow along, paulkuharsky.com, make sure you check that out. Thanks to everybody who came out on Saturday. Tomato Fest was great on Friday and Saturday, but we had a really awesome party at Basement East for Sinkers Beverages 40th birthday party. There were some very distinguished dignitaries that were there, PK. We did not expect to see some folks in position of power, like perhaps the one that you and I send our formal applications for private small businesses in the state to every single year. We're there, and it was fascinating just trying to figure out why. But the music was great. 3 great bands, super bizarre ebb and flow. We went from bluegrass to 80s, 90s rock metal to blues and soul music to end. It was a super fun night. Great musicians. They had a candy bar. I've never seen this before. The entire table was just all candy. 50 different types of candy. I did everything in my power to stay away for most of the evening. Great beverages, food trucks. The whole thing was great. So happy birthday to Sinkers. Shout out to Joe and Adam and Joey and Grant and Emily and Terrence and all the other great folks that were there. It was so much fun to hang out with all you guys. Josh and Marquise and everybody that was there was super, super fun. So appreciate everybody coming out. And
why stay away from the candy bar? I mean, you're letting your hair down at a big party. You got to dive into the candy bar.
I had not eaten dinner yet. This is what happened. I had not eaten dinner yet, and I knew that if I just gorged myself on candy, I was going to get a tummy ache. I didn't want to I didn't want my tum to get hurt. So I had some Reese's Pieces, had a couple Twizzlers, had some Sour Patch Kids. I had a couple. I had enough to whet the appetite there. But the giveaway was extraordinary. 3 different golf bags, a Yeti cooler, an Arctic cooler, an Orca cooler, a 2-person trip to Buffalo Trace to do a Blanton's Gold's barrel pick. That's extraordinary. So just a great party, and thanks to Sinkers Beverages for putting it on. And oh, by the way, every penny went to charity. How about that?
Nice, very nice.
They put on this whole thing, and every penny goes to charity. So I hope it was awesome to see everybody out there. And I know we were watching the Titans game on the phones, so I get it, but it was a lot of fun. And when I got home that night, not a late night for me, I got home and popped on the TV and wanted to watch the first couple of drives, much to my wife's chagrin, who wanted to watch Baby Reindeer. I don't know if you've heard of that show.
I watched it.
It's crazy.
Weird.
Very weird. And I was like, no, can I just watch 2 drives? I just need to watch 2 drives, just 2 drives. I didn't know that was going to take a half an hour of game time or 2 hours of game all the way in the middle of the second quarter. But lots of stuff to talk about. So Sinkers Beverages. Let's start with Cam Ward. I think the takeaway here should be poise. I've been searching for the thing I wanted to say about this exact experience, because you don't want to overreact one way. You don't want to overreact the other. He got pretty lucky. We can discuss each throw individually if you want, PK. But I thought the thing that stood out to me, there's plenty to work on and plenty to like, all the above. But I thought the thing is the game didn't look too big for him. He looked controlled. He looked under. He knew what to do with the football. I know we could talk about level of competition, but I think the most important thing people should take away is that he looked like he belonged on the field with other professional athletes, which is to be expected. It's table stakes. But the poise was there, and I thought that was the most important part, to me, at least.
Yeah, I mean, for sure, you didn't want him to be overwhelmed or struggle or throw a pick, botch a snap, anything like that. I thought that the practice, kind of gave a good forecast that he was handling things just fine, and that he belongs thing that you mentioned was definitely in play. And then, he messed up his footwork a couple times, and the like. And things really broke perfectly on the 27-yard throw to Ridley. That was the biggest play of the game, his first completion, and what got them going on the second drive where they drove down to their lone touchdown. The protection was great. And Ridley was 6 yards open, probably didn't say enough about that probably being a coverage bust for him to be, sitting there all alone facing the quarterback practically, in a position where he could wave his hands to say that he was open. But you kind of put all of that stuff aside, was able to step forward, drive a ball to Ridley, get things moving, converted 2 third downs with passes to 2 different guys, hit Ridley 3 times in a row there, then converted 2 third downs with passes to different guys. Only thing missing really was that they ran it in instead of threw it in. And then, sat him on the bench after he was there 6.5 hours early to get ready for all of that. A poised evening with no operational errors and some good throws, and clearly understood what they were trying to do, where people were going to be, and all of that. That's like the main thing. Then you get to,
Yep.
Look, Bucs played nobody. The 4 guys that were rushing him on that 27-yard throw, I think combined for 7 or 7.5 sacks last year, whereas the 4 guys who could have been playing combined, I think, for 24 sacks. And so you have to contextualize all of that and not go too crazy with it. But was it a good start? Yeah. I mean, it's what you want to see when everybody's going crazy over Shedeur Sanders playing 3 quarters and being efficient. You certainly, if you're a Titans fan, don't want your guy to look bad, and he didn't.
I do want to ask you about the Shedeur coverage, much like how Travis Hunter immediately took away coverage from Cam Ward during the draft, which again, I think that one's actually worthy of taking coverage away when someone trades up for an unprecedented player. I think that's a big story. Shedeur Sanders being okay in third string duty and maybe better than his 6th round draft status is just not that big of a story to me, but he will be because of his name and because of his father. And I can't tell if that's a good thing or a bad thing for Cam Ward, but we can get to that in a little bit. I think if you're going through the Titans' way of grading plays, the way they grade throws, that's an A throw, a B throw, a C throw, and maybe and we add an F to that. I think by and large, there weren't a lot of A throws, and there was only 1 F throw. If I go through and go, look at it, it should have been an interception, and that would have ended it, and that would have ended a touchdown drive. That was a huge mistake, but they lived to tell about it, so that's a learning moment there. Here's the other thing: Io Manor's down the sideline, Chig's running that deep 12-yard out. That seems like it's 2 players in the same place, a little too close for comfort. So it seems like almost everybody was off on that play. Maybe that's just one you throw away in theory. But that throw to Ridley that you talk about, which is the biggest play, it wasn't his best throw. I don't think it was even close to his best throw. He was late on that throw. If you want to be super nitty gritty about this, it's a B throw, maybe even a B plus throw, but he probably should have thrown it 1 or 2 hitches earlier when Ridley's running full speed and he's over across the middle of the field. It was a little late, but again, perfect, made the play. The best throw to me was the 13-yard dig route where Cam has to throw over guys. It was Ridley's 3rd catch, I think, and he has to lead him by a pretty large margin because he's running away from the defender.
To the left, right?
It's going to the left, and not the one where he goes over the hand and Ridley makes the diving catch, because that also could have been a better throw. But the one where he hits Ridley in stride in front of 2 guys, streaming across the field, where he has to go back across the offensive line and all the way across the defense, that was a brilliant throw. And that's the one that I was that's the one that looks the most impressive. And then the other ones were very the ones you're supposed to make. Be satisfied with the mundane. Hitting Chig on 3rd down, hitting Lockett on 3rd down. Those are the plays that a professional quarterback has to make, that aren't flashy, that don't make highlight reels, but that are the way you win games and sustain drives. And so I thought it was a hell of a debut. I agree that they're not, take it with a grain of salt, because it's just, the defense wasn't exactly all world, and it was 1 drive and he made a big mistake. So let's just, everybody take a deep breath.
Yeah. So, and the guys around him did well. The offensive line did what it should do, minus Zeitler with Rupsich in there for him, and Cushenberry obviously not in there again. But yeah, to Eddie's point, did what it's supposed to do versus backups. Protection pretty good all night. Allen took a couple hits. But that Cam was unbothered was something to see. He
nice.
didn't have to worry about pressure.
And to be fair, while it's absolutely important context that we talk about the starting defensive line, and especially Cansey and Vita Vea not being in there in particular, neither was Cushenberry or Zeitler. So, I mean, I think it's 3 out of 5 weren't in there for the Titans, 4 out of 4 not in there for the Bucs. I'm not saying it washes out, but it is worth mentioning that they should be in theory. And we'll get to some of the injury updates, but it sounds like Cushenberry is going to be back practicing sooner than we expect. So, as Callahan indicated on Sunday. So, I was going to ask you about the offensive line, and this was on paulkuharsky.com with Blake's write-up of afterward, and we could talk about this pass rush and offensive line. Just severe lack of depth was one of his observations. I don't think that's a new story, but the offensive line and the defensive line, when you take those stars out of there, there's a concern about how quickly it drops off from a production standpoint.
Yeah, well, defensive line was without and only played a series. It's without Sweat and Simmons. Sweat's going to miss another week here after a tonsillectomy, so that's not good. He's missed a lot of time. You don't like that, but you think things get better for the outside guys when the better inside guys are there who are foundational. So we'll see what kind of bearing that has. Sweat's not going to play, I wouldn't think, in Atlanta, and I don't think this game is going to give us much of a gauge. I think probably one series, both sides, token stuff after 2 practices. Offensive line, your depth is down some because Hance isn't there. He's been out with this calf for a long time. Rupsich isn't there because he's starting for Zeitler, and Levin isn't there because he's starting for Cushenberry. So there are 3 pieces of the depth of the second line missing. So 3 third-team guys are moved up a notch, and then you're weaker all across the board. But yeah, I don't think it's not going to be great back there. Jalen Duncan, Blake, maintains as a guard, playing tackle. Duncan's looked better in practices. I didn't have a lot of time or great vision to concentrate on what Duncan was doing, but if you're expecting great things from Duncan and who am I missing?
John
Ojukwu. Yeah. That'd be a real turnaround for them in year 2 under Callahan, and it could only add so much on the offensive line. Yeah. You need the top guys to stay healthy.
I think 2 things can be true here, which is that I think the offensive line looks like it could be better. And that actually could be the thing that happens this time. That I think the rookies look like they are going to be contributing members for the foreseeable future, whatever that means. I think we can talk about Femi Oladejo if you want. I think the 2 receivers were fine. I think it's not that we didn't know this, BK, but it's in stark sort of, it just stands out when you see it. When you take the top, let's say, I'm going to say like 15 players, offense and defense, just take the best 5 to 6 guys on both sides of the ball, or 7 guys on both sides of the ball off the field, which happens very quickly in a preseason game. It turns into a whoa. like the pass rush doesn't have a lot of playmakers. The receivers are very inexperienced, although I like DK and Ayumanor, and Oliver made a nice couple of plays on Saturday night as well. There's not. It's not that there aren't things to like, and that there isn't reasons to be excited about the trajectory of the organization, but it was stark. It was stark the lack of playmaking ability at almost every position as soon as those top 15 guys are out of the game.
Yeah, I agree. Not a surprise. Cedric Gray maybe showed a little bit better than I expected, based on the fact that he hasn't really been out there prominently. James Williams, I was encouraged by, flying around. Blake pointed out, there's a lot of good stuff like chasing stuff down to the perimeter, but not necessarily in the middle of the field.
He strikes me as a very good old school weak side backer in a 4-3. Where that 4-3 scheme where that weak side guy is allowed to scrape and doesn't have to take on lead blockers, doesn't have to diagnose pulling guards. If you give him space, he can fly around. But he did get pushed around a few times where an offensive lineman got his hands on him and was just pushing him. So take that for what it's worth.
And then, what means something? They gave up, 178 yards rushing. Well, does that mean anything given, when some of it happened? They didn't score and they allowed a lot of points. Does that mean anything? That's what they did last year in losing games. Does it mean anything with second and third stringers? Is it a team?
I don't think
team? No, not really.
I mean, if they ran the ball 41 times for 170 something yards on Sweat and Simmons, I'd be concerned.
Yeah.
And Cody Barton and Draymond Jones, am I worried about the depth on the pass rush? Absolutely. Am I worried about depth on O-line? Absolutely. And the injuries, we could touch on that because there's it's sort of a double-edged sword here. Obviously, Tajay Spears takes that screen pass and shows the burst and all the things we saw in camp. Like, this is the irony of the play, of course. He takes the screen pass, goes left, cuts upfield, picks up a nice gain, 15 yards, and gets the right ankle sprain, high ankle sprain, which can take a long time to heal. Callahan has said, I guess yesterday at his press conference, that it's going to be at least till the end of preseason games. Are they trying to get him back healthy for the start of the season? Maybe. Who knows? Chestnut and Mullings then split some time. Chestnut first, Mullings second. Mullings missed a blitz pickup or two and then kind of showed growth and learned how to do it. They both were okay between the tackles. And then there's an update. You already mentioned the Sweat update, but it seems like Cushenberry could be back soon on the practice field, and that Snead is sort of maybe let's call it a week behind him or so. So a little good and a little bad on the injury front for the Titans.
Yeah. I'm concerned about Sweat missing all that time. Spears, I would think opening day is a long shot. High ankle sprain. It's going to take you some time. That second back being, to me, that falls more on Pollard than it falls on Chestnut or Mullings. I mean, they're not the same kind of guy. So if you want somebody out in the pass game, Julius Chestnut doesn't do what Tajay Spears does.
Yeah.
And you shouldn't be asking him to, and they won't. Now, they're reluctant to overload Pollard, but to me, it would mean more Pollard. It should mean more Pollard.
And then any thoughts on Snead or Cushenberry? Do you want to just sort of?
I mean, I think Cushenberry could do some individual stuff this week, and he would come off PUP to do that. Snead, remains mysterious. Saw him in the locker room.
Sean says more worried about cornerbacks now after that. Obviously, that's directly tied to L'Jarius Snead's ability to be healthy for the start of the season. And look, I don't know what you make of the safety and corner rotation. We can talk secondary here if you want to. I thought Gabe Jeudy-Lally being first kind of off the bench, so to speak, into that cornerback role. They had Mike Brown playing a lot, and I don't know if that's where they're going to play him. He's more of a special team. Now, he was the punt protector, and as Nick says on Thursday's show, watch those kinds of things because those are the things that show you that the team values him. But I don't know if he had sort of lost some traction in the top four safety room, but maybe with Winston out right now, I don't know. What do you make of the secondary?
Well, Blake said that, Mike Brown and Julius Woods, both good special teamers, but when you have, when you bring Condre Diggs back, what does that say? I don't think Diggs is going to be around as a fourth safety. He can't play special teams. I think he comes back, gets to look in on Cam, gets some film, which has to start this week. I would think he plays in this game no matter what he does in practice. Get some game film to announce to the league, hey, I am recovered from this foot and available and capable, and then goes somewhere else where it could at least be a third. He was good last year before he was hurt, but he's not getting in front of Xavier Woods or Winston or Hooker. So, best case scenario for him is to sit as a fourth safety until somebody gets hurt. That's not much of a role. And he was quick when I said, would you be content to take something lesser, to say, I'm not content for anything. I'm a 3-time Pro Bowl guy, So I think, I can't see how he's here when things start, unless maybe Winston's stuff acts up. And there's some dispute, is this Winston managing recovery from the knee, or is there kind of a hamstring that's kind of related to the knee? We don't know for sure.
Yeah. I want to talk position players, because we did not talk about while we talked about Cam Ward, the fact that they did go 3, bang, bang, bang to Ridley is just a continuation of an important storyline. So that's worth discussing here in just a moment. But Sinkers Beverages, of course, great birthday party on Saturday. Make sure you sign up for the in crowd. If you're watching games this weekend, you got the start of the EPL season, right, PK? Coming up this Saturday. You got Nashville SC.
Chelsea.
There you go. Come on,
World
you Gunners. Come on, you Gunners. We got lots of stuff going on this weekend. So if you're having a party, a get-together, a watch party, etc., make sure you are signed up for the in-crowd. Search Uber Eats and have the booze delivered directly to your door, directly to your watch party by Sinkers Beverages. That's what they do for all of you. Shotgun Willie's Barbecue, open 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. Wednesday through Sunday, not Monday or Tuesday, but Wednesday through Sunday, the official barbecue of the Houston Oilers. What do you make of the rotation here in general? Any players that you thought, again, I think Gabe Jeudy-Lally stood out to me. The fact that Josh Wiley was in the second half a lot stood out to me. The fact that Io Manor was the first receiver off the bench when Calvin Ridley took a break there, I thought was noteworthy, even though he didn't catch a pass. 20 different Titans were targeted, which is hilarious. What do you make of the rotate? Anybody that you think was in a different role than you expected coming off the bench earlier or later than you expected?
I thought that stuff all pretty much lined up with what we'd seen in camp. I mean, Gabe Jeudy-Lally as the guy who's behind McCreary, it continues to surprise me. He's not like the body type guy for nickel to me.
I think he knows what he's doing. I think he knows what he's doing, though.
Yeah, but I thought one of those 4 guys, 2 of whom they paid good money to, undrafted rookies, would be emerging in that, and hasn't. So I think that's a developmental disappointment to this stage. Brownlee was the alternative to McCreary a year ago, and you're not moving Brownlee from the outside now. So Jeudy-Lally, his standing is pretty decent right now.
I think so.
And if I'm recalling correctly, he didn't make the team out of camp last year, which was a surprise because he had a very good camp last year. Now they had a little bit more numbers wise with Awuzie, and a quote unquote healthy Snead, which I think he's on the initial 53, no doubt. So, but I thought a lot of that stuff fell in line. Wiley's fading. I think Wiley's not going to be on this 53, and I would look at what the Patriots have at tight end to see if he'll be following Vrabel up there. And that's a disappointing pick that Vrabel obviously had fingerprints on because of the Cincinnati ties with Fickle. And that bodes well for David Martin Robinson as the third. But really, I think we're going to see mostly Helm and Chig at that position.
I thought Helm looked totally comfortable. Caught one pass, of course, a little out route, looked athletic, was targeted, I think, one other time. Him and Chig, both clearly the top 2 tight ends. I think there's a chance they keep Otokoyo as well, and because he might be the best blocker of the bunch, so there might be a way to keep all 4 of them. We shall see. But I kind of agree. It was, Rupchich being in there, all the right players that we expected to kind of come first off the bench, as it were, I think were the right names.
It lived up to their unofficial depth chart.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I want to talk skill position players because obviously we've already touched on the shakeup there. Look, Ridley, I don't know, and I want to get your thoughts on this. Maybe this is a bigger conversation outside of the offensive skill position players, but I do feel like there's a different type of maturity. I don't know in the whole locker room. Simmons, I think, is there. I think Chig is there. I think Ridley has certainly been just more comfortable in his own skin, it feels like. I don't know. I think we've touched on this, but Nick and I have gone too much into this, but I'm curious what you, since you were on the road with this team, both at practice and at the game, if you feel any differently about the way they're all conducting business. On the broadcast, for example, they're talking about how Callahan is delegating a lot more to his coaching staff, for example. That's just a nugget they threw out there on the broadcast. Are you picking up on any different type of personality in this locker room? I think Ridley is it seems like a different player mentally this year at this time than he was last year.
It's a little bit of a cop out, but it's hard to pick up on a lot of those things until we're actually in the locker room and see how they interact in the locker room. And that doesn't come until, really the prep week for the opener in Denver, maybe 10 days before that. So have a better read on stuff like that. I do think, it's probably a closer team than last year's team, and Callahan worked a lot on that. I think the Ridley Cam chemistry, maybe is telling on some level, representative of something bigger. I certainly think they hope it is representative of something bigger. But I don't know that his disconnect with Levis last year for the first, for all of camp and for the first 5 or 6 weeks of the season was representative of something that was wrong with that team overall. I think it was specific to the two of them. So I think it's a stretch to say their connection is representative of something bigger with the team now until we see evidence of that. But I think obviously it was a big theme, this togetherness during the off season. It's a big theme, this togetherness, what they're doing right now, had a day to kill in Atlanta all together with nothing to rely on but each other yesterday. And that's what he's looking for.
How will they survive?
I don't know when you get when you see what payoff you get out of that. If there's a specific moment or specific thing or just a general feel later in the year.
Look, it's just a general feel for me personally, just chatting with some of those guys, but it's hard to not look at, like, you have to look at Cam and Ridley's relationship, and you kind of have to say it's kind of everything, right? Like, Cam Ward is a better quarterback than Will Levis. Like, I don't think that's going out on a limb here. I don't think that's, some rocket science. Is he better at the right, very, very catchable ball? I thought, you could say maybe he should have thrown that one away that was between the two defenders when he's rolling right. And maybe the one that Ridley had to dive and catch should have been a little bit better, or maybe he should have thrown it a little earlier on the big play over the middle. But I think all this, that's all true. They also just get along more. It's clear that Cam Ward is just very good and very likable at building relationships with people. Like, it's just very clear that that's what he's good at. He's very good at grinding and working. 6.5, you've already mentioned it, 6.5 hours before the game he shows up. He said 4 hours in your story, right, is when he's going to show up for games. He watches movies.
Game. Yeah. I mean, watching a movie at the stadium doesn't prove anything to me.
Right.
Like, if you're watching a movie at the hotel or at the stadium, that doesn't make a difference. So, I don't want to call it performative. I mean, it's a guy who's anxious to be there and whatever. But then when you're talking about killing time at the stadium, I mean, it's the same thing everybody who's got a job at the stadium is doing. And it's a long day before a night game, and you got to find some way to make it past, A lot of reporters went there exceedingly early too. I get bored out of my mind there that early, and I'd rather be bored out of my mind at the hotel.
I'm like a 10:45, 11 a.m. guy at Nissan Stadium. What time do you get to Nissan Stadium?
I try to get there 2 hours before.
Okay.
Roughly.
We'll talk backup quarterbacks in just a second, but I do think I think all of the predictions on receiver are there. All of the tight end predictions seem to be there. The connection from Cam Ward seems to be with all of those players. We now have the injury in the backfield. We'll see what that does for the regular season, but it does feel like one of the only set things we have is sort of the skill position players around Cam Ward, and it feels like they are better than they were last year. Now, the backup quarterbacks did not take advantage of that. Look, it is hard to throw the ball 13 times for 1.8 yards per attempt. Now, I don't think that there was a discussion that Tim Boyle was going to be the backup quarterback. I haven't seen it. I haven't heard it. You and I haven't talked about it. I assume this was Brandon Allen, and honestly, I think his throw to Iomanner on the out route was the embodiment of Brandon Allen. The exact right read and the exact right throw to the exact right person, placed perfectly, but like 2 seconds too late because the ball took forever to get there. Like
It's weak arm.
That's the throw that like embodies the entire. Like I think he knows how to run the offense and put the ball in the right place. He just can't get it there fast enough. So
I just don't think I wrote this afternoon. And first off, there's a our lads quarterback depth chart like for the whole league. I put a link to it in the piece that I wrote. You go down the third column and the fourth column. There's nothing to be excited about. All right, there are guys who are better than Allen who are going to come free. You know, Bettingfield, I asked him about it, and he sees some young guys he likes, like, hey, develop 2 young guys at the same time. And he sees some veterans that he thinks are, more in the mold of Ward. So if you could get that, why not, at least go that route. To me, I should have taken it as a signal right off the bat when they wanted Mason Rudolph back, that they weren't taking backup quarterbacks seriously. Now, maybe they were factoring Levis in there. It seemed like a lot of people thought that they weren't. I thought they should have been. But when you want Levis back, when you want Rudolph back, I mean, Rudolph turned the ball over at almost the same rate as Levis. Levis was a turnover machine. The guy that you brought in to settle things down after him did not settle things down, and then you wanted him back, and you got outbid by the Steelers for him. So I don't know what the hell that was, but to me, that's not taking backup quarterback seriously. And I think with Allen, you're overvaluing this. Oh, he's familiar with Callahan from Cincinnati. I don't give a damn. And then, he's a fine at practice, but
yeah,
you overrate that because you're seeing that all of the time. The guy's got to be able to go in and win you a game or not lose you a game. And he was terrible. Boyle, I've said from the start, doesn't belong in the league. It's just awful. So I don't know what he brings to you. He cannot be your practice squad guy because he's a twisted ankle away from being a twisted ankle away from going into a game. And he can't go into a game. You cannot allow him on the field.
A young, talented player with upside is far more interesting in that role.
So I think that their attitude is, and until they go and get somebody else, I'm going to believe this, their attitude is, if Cam goes down or if Cam hits a struggle where we've got to say, hey, you know what? Cam's got a tweaked ankle and we're going to sit Cam down for a little while here and let him assess things from the bench, and we'll get back to him when he's feeling better. That they're okay with just losing those games and taking their lumps this year that contribute to a draft pick next year. And philosophically, in terms of the building, that's okay. But it's not okay because Cam Ward isn't the only guy they're developing this year. And so it screws Bryce Oliver, and it screws Iomanner, and it screws DK, and it screws Helm, and it screws everybody that's connected to the growth of the offense. And so you can't do it. You can't do it. You have to have somebody who's got a better chance of functionality. Otherwise, you're throwing away developmental games for the rest of the offense. And as much as you can say it's all about Cam Ward, it's not only all about Cam Ward. And you can't throw away games for Alec Iomanner. You can't. And so it's a stupid philosophy. And they've undervalued the position. Maybe there's a chance for somebody better, but your best chance for somebody better was during free agency.
It's what's so funny is, and I don't think this is the right answer for the Titans, but we were there and some reporters had just been at Packers facility and they came down and they were asking us what was going on. And I asked what was going on at Green Bay and they're like, Malik Willis looks great. Now, I don't think he's the right guy for this conversation necessarily, but there's a guy who's been developed, a talented player who has been developed by a very good coach with a very good offensive scheme and a lot of weapons around the quarterback position. Here's my thing, though. Like, you can't – what I think is interesting is what is the right amount of investment? And it's hard. Like, John Robinson goes out and gets Ryan Tannehill. Some of that is they saw an opening to go get a depreciated asset. Some of that was Tannehill had never really been all that special. And some of that was they thought maybe Mariota wasn't fully ready to, was never going to be back to being himself again ever. And he wasn't. So that's a little bit more like you're actually doing that, thinking there's a chance he could be playing more than a backup would. So it's not like you should go out and do that. It's not like you should go out and invest that much in a backup. So it's you do have to toe the line between all in on the starter versus having a second guy that's good enough to get the fans riled up the way Tannehill did.
Ray School or whatever his name is here says, anyone thinking the backup quarterback matters on a non-playoff team is setting their expectations way too high. That's ridiculous.
That's not what we're talking
about. You're allowed to try to be better at any position on the roster all the time. So you just say, have no backup quarterback.
There's 8 positions on the roster, PK, where I want to be worse this year.
Yeah.
What are we talking about?
A backup quarterback, check.
I'm fine with losing if Cam goes down, but you got to be able to get passes to these young receivers. Says Forrest. I think that is correct. How has Tim Boyle lasted this long in the league? Same question. Let's see here. There was a couple other questions about other positions that I'm going to get back to. So we shall see. I don't know. Let's see here. Okay, we'll talk about Fossil and offensive line personalities in just a second. So Tim Boyle, I think from the very first practice, we were all kind of like, unsure why he's here. Right. Unsure why he's here. And the Levis thing was obviously we didn't know it at the time. Maybe the team did when they signed him, but we shall see.
And I don't get this. Eddie says, I guess that's fair, PK, but as a fan, I'd rather have a top 3 pick. I just don't want to hear that nonsense. I don't want to engage in it. They got 17 games ahead of them, and you're already thinking top 3 pick. I mean, have a season. Have a chance. Let those guys go catch some touchdowns. Learn how to score. Learn how to play.
Tim Boyle.
If you want to talk draft season, maybe Braden's up for it. I'm not. I don't give a shit about the draft.
Not right now. I mean, it's a side story in the back of your head. You're like, oh, I guess we can get Peter Woods instead of.
I don't know who Peter Woods is, and I don't care.
Well, Titans fans should start studying.
No, they shouldn't. They should expect this team to be better and go win some games and not worry about their draft spot.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Any leaders on the offensive line from a personality standpoint, asks Jack. Look, I think Skoronski's been the best player in camp, maybe of any player on the entire team, including maybe Simmons. He might be the best player in terms of how he's performed and how well he's looked in camp. I don't think he's like a super vocal. He's like him and Zeitler are very similar. They sort of speak like with just some authority, but it's kind of a little bit more muted. I think J.C. Latham is really growing into a leadership role. I think he could be a very good leader. Cushenberry just needs to be back.
Yeah,
and I think Cushenberry might be the guy.
Singular guy that's like a lead the charge. It seems to me like it's a collective group. I don't know if that's a potential issue or not. I think they're all, kind of hold each other and hold themselves to account. And I think Cushenberry's probably the one that they'll look to. Yeah. But we'll see
when he is healthy. But otherwise, I think Latham, much like I feel like some of the other players, I think there's a different confidence, different motive. Like there's just a different maturity level about some of these guys, Skoronski and Latham included. Bones Fossil might be the most animated coach I've seen in a Titans sideline. He looks like he's conducting an orchestra. What'd you make of special teams? Anything of note in the special teams world?
I think they probably are still working on finding their second gunner outside of Oliver, because I didn't think it was very good opposite him. And I don't know why they're wasting snaps on Jaquan Jackson. This is something that just disturbs me. Like he's got some seniority, but he is wide receiver 10 at best. He's got no shot at making this roster. So why are you wasting time?
Yeah. I don't necessarily disagree. He is fun to watch on the sidelines, though. I'll tell you that. There's no question about that. Okay, Shotgun Willie's Barbecue, open 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. They've got the best brisket in the city, award-winning brisket. It is truly like it eats like a filet. Like it does not eat like traditional backyard dried out brisket. It is spectacular. Dark meat chicken, the half chicken is one of my go-tos. I love Tony's Magic Green Beans. They've got an incredible hominy if you're into that kind of stuff. They do something a little different with all their sides, right? Like it's a jalapeno mac and cheese. It's a dill pickle potato salad, which is off the charts good if you like potato salad. And then they've got the ribs, which I love. I'm a brisket and ribs guy all the way. You can't eat barbecue every week at my age, but when I do, it's brisket and ribs. And my guy Shotgun Bill up there does an amazing job. Right there off Briley Parkway, just north of East Nashville, kind of in Madison, and less than 10 minutes from downtown. So phenomenal, award-winning. You should go check it out. They got a mechanical bowl, free parking, all homemade, made from scratch, everything. So go check it out. Sinkers Beverages, a 4-time liquor store of the year. You guys know the deal about Sinkers. So there you go. Here's my question about this coverage thing. And this just struck me because I was watching all the shows this morning. I wanted to see what everyone was going to lead with and how many quarterbacks, and it's obvious that Shedeur is sucking all the oxygen out of the room when it comes to rookie quarterbacks. Now, almost every show, whether it's Good Morning Football or some of the other ones, McAfee and some other people, they're getting to Cam Ward. They're just getting to him after Shedeur Sanders. I'm curious if you think that's good or bad. I think it could be both.
I don't think it matters a lick. I mean, national coverage of the Titans. First off, if you want any real intelligent detail about your team, whoever it is, unless you've got a national reporter based in your town who's seeing your practices regularly, you need local. And so then where your team ranks in the national telecast, I just don't understand the fascination with that. So I need attention. So what?
No. Let me word it differently. Let me. Then I should. This isn't coming out correctly. Let me reword it because I agree with you on what you just said. There are certain things in sports that just they're so big, and it's not even just sports. Like the Epstein thing is this way. Like it dwarfs every single story for a variety of obvious reasons. That just it breaks through, right? This, like my wife's algorithm is full of the things you might all expect it's full of, but like the flood in Texas broke through, right? There's certain things that break through the noise and the clutter and get to a certain level of sort of exposure that it's and Shedeur has just got that. That's just what it is.
Well, I think people want the flood in Texas. I think the visuals are amazing. I think the story's incredibly sad and it's incredibly important. I think Shedeur Sanders is forced down your throat by media powers that decide everybody's interested in him because he's Deion's son and because those media powers decided that he was going to be the 3rd pick in the draft and he wasn't. And they're going to show you him because he didn't live up to their expectations. This is my big problem with the draft thing. We decide where everybody's going to be drafted. And if they're not drafted there, then we track it as if it was a huge stray from the norm. Well, who actually decided where he was going to be drafted were the teams that did and did not draft him. And so what the league decided was that he was a 5th round pick. We were all wrong. So what we should do is shut up and treat him like a 5th round draft pick, which is what he was.
You're not, let me get to my point here, which is that Cam Ward is not that. Now the Titans are a factor in all of this because they're the Titans, a smaller market, younger fan base, et cetera, all the things we've covered for years. My question is does Cam Ward benefit from being more under the radar than your average number 1 overall pick, personality-wise, and being on the Titans? And I think you can make the case that he's going to have more freedom to do what he wants to do. And I know that sounds weird to say because every player just is going to do what they need to do on the field, off the field, whatever. But it feels like if Cam Ward had this level of Q rating, just like the amount of shit that is on Shedeur is self-inflicted to some degree by him and his father. There's no question about that. And I agree with you, the media does it, but the media doesn't do that unless they're getting engagement out of it. The algorithm drives everything. And so Cam doesn't drive the algorithm is maybe the better way of putting this. And I think that is beneficial for him personally. It's going to frustrate some fans because of all the reasons we've talked about for years. But I think it benefits Cam Ward to be the kind of quiet, confident, poised guy that just goes about his business, I'm going to be 5 of 8 for 60 yards, over 8 yards per attempt, and I'm going to lead a touchdown drive. I might have thrown an interception, but if that's Joe Burrow or Arch Manning, that throw that almost gets intercepted turns into a huge thing that becomes a part of the the conversation. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, it's probably beneficial for him that it's quiet. It's probably beneficial for anybody who can operate a little bit more out of the spotlight as they grow. Like overexposure for somebody as they take their lumps is never. I don't know who it's helped.
I think there are players who get it, and I agree with you.
They might get it. They might get it and have a handle on it, but it hasn't necessarily been beneficial for them.
I think AJ Brown is one where it's been beneficial. He knows how he gets it. He's comfortable in it, but it's authentic to him. It's not authentic to Cam.
Yeah, but what lumps has AJ Brown really taken? He's always been really good.
No. What I mean is that he is. So Ryan Williams is a freshman wide receiver at Alabama last year. He's going to be All-American this year. He's going to be a top 5 pick in 2 years or whatever. There are guys that understand being what a superstar athlete is, and then there's guys that understand like what the next thing up is. Like they understand how to be great on a football. A lot of players know how to be great on a football field. There's other guys that know how to be great on a football field and also do this other thing that just allows them to elevate themselves, whether it's revenue, whether it's money, whether it's attention, whether it's endorsements, whatever it might be. And AJ Brown, from the moment he got here, you could tell he understood how to play that part of the game.
Yeah.
And Cam doesn't give a shit, frankly. He doesn't. maybe too much so that he needs to stop saying I don't give a shit.
Well, it's disingenuous to a degree to say I don't give a shit and then to say the league is not welcoming me. That's disingenuous. If you don't give a shit, then you don't know that the league is not welcoming me. And what does the league welcoming you mean? Like, are there parades thrown for other players that are welcomed? Like, that means the media is not welcoming me. And then that means you do care what the media is saying. So it's disingenuous.
Jason says has to be beneficial that he doesn't have to fabricate an artificial chip on his shoulder.
Oh, he's got one.
Right.
Well, you're saying he doesn't have to fabricate.
It's not fake. It's real. Yeah, it's real. Yeah.
But that's where his struggle's going to be, because he goes from being this underdog who was a great story because he made it as a guy who didn't get recruited to a guy who's got huge expectations as number 1 pick in the draft. That's where his difficulty is going to come.
And Eddie, I think Eddie says, I guess I'm in a disagreement with most of Titans Twitter. I enjoy less scrutiny on what's probably going to be an up and down season. I think this is really interesting. And I do think this is where Cam is, and maybe we've talked about this. I think Cam is uniquely wired to handle this type of season, which could be bad. And there's going to be highs and there's going to be lows. But I think, Eddie, you kind of said it in your question there, which is that Twitter inherently is designed to only enrage the highs and the lows. It is designed in a laboratory to avoid staying even keel and in the middle. And Cam is the opposite. Cam wants to be right in the middle at all times. And I think he's never too high, he's never too low. That's probably going to upset people when he throws an interception. It might not when you throw a touchdown, but that's just kind of how he's wired. I think there's some wisdom in that in general in life. And it's the opposite of how social media functions, which we all understand. I just think I'm already seeing PK. I did not watch much preseason ball on Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Like I just didn't. I watched a little Saturday Night Titans. Didn't see any of my Packers. Like I wasn't consuming it. I couldn't get away from Shador coverage on Sunday morning and Sunday afternoon. Just couldn't get away from it. And I think it benefits Cam that he's not like this, that he doesn't have the gravitational force, that people aren't obsessed with him, and that there's other players that are taking this attention. I think it benefits him because I think he's just going to show up at 5:30 and grind his ass off. And I don't know if that means he's going to win. I think it's good for him.
Sanders is also in a unique situation where he's playing 3 quarters, and how many quarterbacks of note are playing 3 quarters? Usually the ones playing 3 quarters are crappy 5th round picks. Oh, wait.
Do you think players should play more in the preseason or less?
I have no problem with coaches deciding that they can't risk injuries, because as soon as you play people more in the preseason, somebody suffers a serious injury, and I think your number 1 job is to have your guys on opening day.
Yeah. Colts quarterback Daniel Jones in the comment section here. National coverage of Cam's story is him not being discussed as the number 1 pick. I mean, that's kind of fair, actually. Go back to battling for your starting job there in Indianapolis. And somebody also did say this earlier, like the AFC South is sort of like this in general. I think Jacksonville could be interesting this year with some really interesting talent and some interesting pieces. The Colts have an interesting quarterback battle and always get overcovered in general. Houston is the best team. So, again, even in that format, the Titans are going to kind of be the 4th story. But I think it's I think it's a really interesting division. It may not be a good division, but I think it's a really interesting division.
Yeah, it's maybe less predetermined, though. I think Houston could win the division by 3 games. I wouldn't surprise me if Houston won the division by 3 games. So that would make it the least interesting in that regard.
I think Jacksonville's the one to watch. I'm coming around on Jacksonville as being 2nd place in the division. High implosion factor for the Colts. Very high implosion factor.
Oh, I think the Colts are bad.
Yeah. All right. What you got coming up on paulkuharsky.com this week? How about what do we need to expect from these practices with the Falcons, which I guess will be Tuesday and Wednesday, correct?
Yeah, tomorrow and the day after. I think people, are going to be watching Cam really closely, really carefully. And there's no getting around that. I mean, I don't know if I'll be able to get myself to watch a defense the 2nd day, or maybe change it up and watch a defense the 1st day and Cam the 2nd day. I don't know. I think the audience wants Cam, and it's hard not to give them that. So, stay tuned.
Footwork. He's got to work on the footwork.
We got to work on the footwork.
There you go. Sinkers Beverages, Shotgun Willie's Barbecue. I can't wait for more actual football games to discuss. Nick and I will be back on Thursday to break down the joint practices and everything that's happened. Maybe we'll see some of these injured guys get back on the field, of course. Overall, I think it was a pretty good debut for Cam Ward, and I think you should be excited about it. It doesn't mean you're going to win more games this year. I think everything should be taken kind of in stride and not get overreact. Nobody should be overreacting or underreacting. Just react. And I think you should be excited about what he showed us, and that's it. Like that until the next one, that's all you can do. So
I think there was a chance for him to go based on how practices had gone. I think there was a chance that he was going to go and the offense was going to be overwhelmed by the Bucs, and it wasn't at the practice or in the game. And just on that alone, I'd feel better.
Very good stuff. Very good stuff. There you go. Jake says the people need more Cam Horsley. That's right. We're going to give him nothing but Cam Horsley coverage over the course of the next 2 days.
I think they'll see Cam Horsley plenty.
He's a nice player. I know Blake likes him a lot. So,
yeah.
All right. Sinkers Beverages, Shotgun Willie's Barbecue, all the other great shows across the 440 Sports Network. Make sure you check them out. SEC football is getting started here. So SEC football live's up and running on Wednesdays. We've got the Gold Standard covering the Predators. You got Club and Country covering Nashville SC. Lamestream Sports on Friday covering Nashville sports media and business. All kinds of great stuff. The Paul Kuharsky podcast on his YouTube page. Make sure you check that out also as well. Otherwise, thanks for listening. Thanks for hanging out. We'll talk to you next time. Peace and love.
See you.